Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. The world has taught you that silence is something to be broken, that to be quiet is to be powerless. Yet in truth, silence is the space where the most powerful energies gather. It is not the absence of strength, but the fullness of understanding. When you choose silence, you choose not to react to the chaos of others, not because you have nothing to say, but because you realize that most things do not deserve your voice. There is a deep and unshakable peace that comes when you no longer feel the need to prove yourself through sound. In silence, you learn to see clearly. You begin to recognize how noise often disguises insecurity, how loudness is often a mask for confusion. The one who shouts the most is usually the one who feels unheard within. But the one who remains calm has already mastered the art of self-trust. They do not seek validation from others because they know their worth is not measured by applause or agreement. Silence is a declaration that you no longer participate in the meaningless games of ego. You no longer dance to the rhythm of others' expectations. You begin to move only to the quiet music of your own soul. When you stop rushing to respond, you start to hear the truth behind people's words. You start to understand what is real and what is merely noise. Silence refines your perception. It sharpens your awareness. You start noticing how often people speak not to communicate, but to fill the void of their own unease. You begin to see that those who truly know themselves do not compete for attention, they embody it naturally. They do not need to announce their power, their presence speaks it effortlessly. Think of silence like a mirror. It reflects everything as it is, without distortion. When you are silent, you become aware of your own thoughts, your own reactions, your own emotional tides. You see the rise of anger, the waves of doubt, the sparks of ego, and in seeing them, you begin to understand that you are not those emotions. You are the awareness behind them. Silence becomes the space in which your mind begins to rest. And in that rest, your wisdom awakens. Most people fear silence because it reveals the noise within. They avoid stillness because it exposes everything they've been running from, their insecurities, their regrets, their suppressed truths. But that confrontation is exactly what makes silence powerful. When you allow yourself to sit in stillness, you stop running. You face yourself. You hear the whispers of your inner wisdom, the quiet guidance that the noise of the world has drowned out. That is where real clarity begins, when you can hear your soul louder than the opinions of others. There is also a sacred strength in choosing not to react. When someone tries to provoke you and you respond with silence, you take away their control. You refuse to be pulled into their emotional chaos. You teach them that your peace is not up for negotiation. Silence becomes your armor. It protects your energy, your dignity, and your focus. In that moment, you are not suppressing your power, you are mastering it. In a world addicted to constant expression, choosing silence becomes an act of rebellion. Everyone wants to speak, to post, to prove, to defend. But the wise know that truth doesn't need defense. The sun never argues with the night, it simply rises. Silence carries that same energy. You do not need to announce your intentions or justify your choices. Your actions, your calm, your consistency, they will speak on your behalf. The beauty of silence is that it allows your energy to do the talking. When you walk in silence, people feel your confidence without you having to say a word. Your presence becomes magnetic. Your boundaries become clear. Your aura speaks volumes. The right people will feel your frequency. The wrong ones will be unsettled by it. That is the power of quiet strength. It filters your world without you needing to lift a finger. There will be moments when people mistake your silence for weakness. Let them. The wise never argue with ignorance. Time will reveal everything your words never had to explain. Silence is not about hiding, it is about aligning. When you choose silence, you align yourself with peace, with purpose, with truth. You no longer chase understanding from those who were never meant to understand you. You no longer waste energy trying to change minds that are not open. Instead, you redirect that energy inward, building, healing, growing. The most transformative growth happens when no one is watching, when you stop talking about what you're becoming and start simply becoming it. Silence creates the space for that transformation. It removes distractions and allows the seeds of discipline, focus, and clarity to root deeply within you. The louder the world becomes, the more precious your inner silence should be. It is your sanctuary. It is the space where you remember who you are beneath all the noise. To be silent is not to retreat from life, it is to engage with it more deeply. You begin to feel more, sense more, understand more. You start to live from awareness rather than reaction. Silence teaches you patience. It shows you timing. It whispers that not every question deserves an answer, and not every situation requires your energy. It teaches you that sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. The next time you are tempted to explain, defend, or prove, pause. Let your silence carry the message. Let your calm be your strength. Because those who are truly wise do not need to speak to be understood. Their silence says everything. Focusing on yourself is not selfish, it's self-respect. The world often teaches you that giving endlessly, sacrificing your peace, and putting others first is the ultimate sign of love. But in truth, the constant need to please everyone drains your spirit and blurs your sense of self. You begin to mistake exhaustion for compassion and neglect for kindness. The moment you start focusing on yourself, people may call you selfish, but that is only because your energy is no longer available for their convenience. What they once called love was often dependency. What they called loyalty was sometimes control. But choosing yourself, reclaiming your time, your boundaries, your peace, is the greatest act of self-respect you can ever commit to. When you begin to focus inward, something remarkable happens. You stop seeking approval from the outside world. You no longer chase validation in the eyes of others, because you realize that self-worth cannot be borrowed. It must be built. You stop waiting for others to make you feel seen, because you finally see yourself. This shift is subtle, yet powerful. It is the difference between existing to please and existing to grow. When your focus returns to yourself, your energy becomes your own again. You stop scattering it across meaningless conversations, shallow relationships, and endless distractions. You start using it to create, to heal, to evolve. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean you stop caring for others. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the process. You begin to understand that your well-being is the foundation of every connection, every purpose, every goal. When you are empty, you have nothing real to give. But when you are full of clarity, self-love, and inner peace, you naturally overflow with genuine kindness and strength. You no longer give out of obligation. You give from abundance. That is the difference between draining yourself and empowering yourself. This kind of self-focus requires courage, because it means setting boundaries where there used to be guilt. It means saying no when your heart is tired. It means walking away from situations that no longer nourish your soul. The world will not always understand this. Some will call you distant, cold, or changed. But what they truly mean is that you no longer allow yourself to be controlled by their expectations. You've stopped living through the reflection of others and started living through the truth of who you are. That is not selfishness, it is liberation. When you focus on yourself, you begin to hear the inner voice that has been drowned out by noise. That quiet intuition, the one that knows exactly what you need, starts to grow stronger. You begin to trust your path, even when it is misunderstood. You start realizing that not everyone is meant to understand your journey because it was never designed for them. The opinions of others start to lose their power, and peace replaces anxiety. This is the essence of self-respect, to choose your peace even when it costs you approval. The truth is, focusing on yourself is an act of love toward every version of you that once settled for less. It's a promise that you will no longer betray yourself to keep others comfortable. It's an acknowledgement that your dreams, your rest, and your healing matter just as much as anyone else's. Self-focus is not a wall, it is a mirror. It reflects everything that needs to be understood, healed, and elevated within you. It's where transformation begins, not through the noise of validation, but through the stillness of self-awareness. You must understand that the world benefits most from those who are whole, not those who are broken from giving too much. Your relationships become healthier when you stop trying to fix people and start improving yourself. Your work becomes more meaningful when it stems from purpose, not pressure. Your peace becomes unshakable when it comes from within, not from the approval of others. Everything changes when you turn your gaze inward, because you finally realize that every answer you ever sought was never outside you. It was waiting in your silence, in your presence, in your truth. There will be times when the old patterns pull at you, when guilt tries to convince you to shrink again. You'll be tempted to go back to old habits, people-pleasing, over-giving, apologizing for being yourself. But this time, awareness will stop you. You'll remember that every time you chose others over your peace, you lost a piece of yourself. And every time you chose yourself, you found strength. This is the balance life demands of you, not to stop loving others, but to love yourself enough to know when to step back, when to rest, when to say enough. Focusing on yourself teaches you one of life's greatest lessons, that your energy is sacred. Every thought, every emotion, every effort you give must serve your growth, not your depletion. You learn to pour into yourself with intention, to eat better, think better, speak better, think better, speak better, move better. You begin to understand that self-focus is not vanity. It is spiritual alignment. It is returning to the source within you that never needed validation to feel worthy. The most peaceful souls are not those who please everyone, but those who please themselves in truth. When you focus on yourself, you begin to glow differently. Your silence becomes power. Your calm becomes magnetic. You stop begging for attention and start commanding respect. You stop chasing love and start attracting it effortlessly. Because when you truly respect yourself, you teach others how to treat you, not through words, but through your energy. So when the world tells you that focusing on yourself is selfish, smile. You know the truth. You know that caring for your mind, guarding your peace, protecting your dreams, and walking away from chaos is not selfish. It is sacred. You are not ignoring the world. You are learning to lead yourself within it. You are not closing your heart. You are nurturing it. The greatest service you can give to the world is a healed, whole, and peaceful version of you. And that begins the moment you finally decide to focus on yourself and let your peace speak for you. Your energy goes where your attention flows. Every thought, every feeling, every small decision you make is a seed that grows into the reality you live. The direction of your life is not shaped by chance. It's shaped by what you choose to focus on every single day. Yet most people live scattered lives, wondering why they feel lost, anxious, or unfulfilled. They give their attention to distractions, gossip, negativity, and noise, and then wonder why their world feels chaotic. Energy is not infinite. It flows where you direct it. And if you keep pouring it into things that drain you, you will never have enough left for what truly matters. When you begin to understand this, you start becoming more selective with your attention. You start noticing how certain thoughts weaken you, how certain people dim your light, how certain environments pull you away from your path. You realize that your focus is your power. It builds worlds. It creates opportunities. It shapes your emotions. The mind is like a magnifying glass. Whatever it focuses on, it amplifies. Focus on your problems and they'll expand. Focus on your purpose and it will grow stronger. Focus on gratitude and peace will follow. The choice is always yours. Most people don't realize how much of their energy is wasted reacting to things that don't deserve a response. They fight battles that were never theirs to fight. They chase validation that was never meant to fill them. They argue to be understood by those who are committed to misunderstanding them. And in doing so, they give away their power little by little. But the moment you withdraw your attention from what drains you, you begin to reclaim yourself. You start feeling lighter, clearer, more grounded. The chaos outside no longer controls the calm within. Focusing your attention inward doesn't mean ignoring the world. It means choosing what deserves your energy. It means learning that not every voice needs to be heard, not every invitation needs to be accepted, and not every opinion needs to matter. You begin to live intentionally. You start waking up and asking yourself, where will I place my energy today? Because your day, your mood, your peace, they all depend on that choice. Energy follows focus, and focus determines destiny. The truth is, everything you focus on has power over you. If you keep revisiting the past, you feed old pain. If you constantly worry about the future, you create unnecessary fear. But when you focus on the present moment, the now, you reclaim your power. Because the present is where your awareness, your choices, and your peace exist. The mind can travel anywhere, but your life unfolds only here. The more attention you give to this moment, the more alive you become. When your attention is fragmented, your spirit feels drained. You lose your sense of direction and purpose because your energy is scattered across too many things. But when you focus on one path, one goal, one truth, you become unstoppable. Your mind begins to align with your purpose, and your actions follow naturally. You stop being pulled by distractions and start being guided by clarity. That is the quiet strength of focus. It transforms confusion into direction. Think about a river. When it flows freely, it nourishes everything in its path. But when it is divided into 1,000 small streams, its power weakens. The same happens with your energy. The more you divide your attention, the weaker your impact becomes. But when you channel all that energy toward your growth, your peace, your discipline, life starts to move in your favor. Opportunities align. People notice your focus, and your results begin to speak louder than your words. The mind is a sacred tool, but it becomes a prison when left uncontrolled. Every thought you entertain has an emotion attached to it. The more you dwell on negativity, the more you feed the very thing that hurts you. But the moment you redirect your focus toward healing, purpose, and gratitude, everything begins to shift. The circumstances may remain the same, but your perception changes, and that changes everything. The storm outside can rage, but your energy stays steady because your attention is rooted in peace, not panic. Energy management is not about working harder, it's about focusing smarter. It's about understanding what truly adds value to your soul and what only consumes it. It's choosing discipline over distraction, growth over comfort, and purpose over pleasure. When your focus aligns with your higher self, you begin to attract the right situations, the right people, and the right timing. Life starts responding to your clarity. There will always be noise, opinions, criticism, temptation, but you must learn to let it pass through you like wind through an open window. Don't fight it. Don't cling to it. The more attention you give it, the more it grows. Instead, direct your focus to the silence within you, where your truth lives. That is where strength is built. When you master your attention, you master your emotions. And when you master your emotions, you master your life. You must also remember that focusing on yourself is not about isolation. It's about alignment. It's about gathering your energy from where it has been scattered and returning it to where it belongs, your growth, your purpose, your peace. You stop giving attention to what drains you and start nurturing what fulfills you. You begin to live by design, not by reaction. Guard your focus as you would guard your life, because it is your life. You stop speaking to be heard and start listening to understand. You stop proving and start becoming. Silence becomes your companion, not your fear. You begin to realize that peace was never found in trying to control the world. It was found in mastering your own focus within it. The noise of the world thrives on your reaction. It grows stronger when you engage with it, when you argue, when you let it disturb your balance. But when you become still, when you no longer respond, it loses its power. People will always talk. The world will always buzz. But when your mind is calm, their noise becomes background music to your purpose. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining your path. You stop letting chaos pull you off course. You begin to see clearly again. The quiet ones, the ones who take time to think, reflect, and observe, are often the ones who rise the highest. Because while the world is distracted by noise, they are building in silence. While others are reacting, they are creating. While others seek attention, they seek mastery. That's the difference between those who follow the crowd and those who lead themselves. Silence is not inaction, it's preparation. It's the ground where discipline grows, where vision sharpens, where peace becomes power. Learn to disconnect. Turn down the volume of the world and turn up the volume of your soul. Take moments each day to just sit in stillness, not to escape life, but to return to it more centered. Because the truth is, once you find peace in silence, The noise of the world can no longer control you. You'll hear it, but it won't shake you. You'll see it, but it won't distract you. You'll walk through it, untouched, calm, and aware. The noise of the world will always exist, but so will your ability to rise above it. Choose wisely where your attention lives. Because the more you listen to the world, the less you hear yourself. But when you choose silence, when you return to your inner stillness, you reconnect with something eternal, the voice that guides, the peace that heals, the wisdom that never needed words. Silence reveals truth louder than words ever could. When you stop speaking and start observing, you begin to see people, situations, and even yourself with a clarity that words often blur. Most of the time, people talk not to communicate, but to conceal. They use words to protect their image, to project confidence, to control how others perceive them. But silence strips away all illusions. When you step back and stop reacting, masks fall away. You start to notice the small details, the hesitation in someone's tone, the inconsistency between their words and actions, the energy behind their smiles. Silence doesn't lie. It listens, it watches, and it understands without needing proof. When you let silence speak, you realize how much noise in this world is unnecessary. People argue to feel right, explain to feel accepted, and speak to fill the emptiness within them. But those who are truly aware have no need for that. They've learned that understanding doesn't always require dialogue. Some truths reveal themselves only when you stop trying to interpret them through words. Silence allows space for what is real to emerge naturally. It's in that stillness that you begin to recognize who truly values you, who respects you, and who only uses you when it's convenient. In a conversation, silence is often the most powerful response. It disarms manipulation. It exposes intent. When someone expects your reaction and you give them stillness instead, they reveal everything about themselves. Your silence becomes a mirror that forces them to face their own behavior. They start to stumble, to over-explain, to fill the empty air with their insecurities. The louder they become, the clearer the truth becomes. Silence is the art of letting truth reveal itself without you needing to lift a finger. Many people are uncomfortable with silence because it forces them to face what's real. It removes the comfort of distraction. In silence, the mind has nowhere to hide. You hear your own thoughts, you feel your own emotions, you confront your own truth. That's why silence feels heavy to those who live in denial. It exposes everything they try to avoid. But for those who seek wisdom, silence is sacred. It's where the inner voice becomes louder than the noise of the world. It's where confusion turns into understanding. It's where the truth is no longer feared but embraced. When you master silence, you no longer need to explain yourself to anyone. You stop justifying your boundaries, your choices, your growth. You let your energy do the talking. Silence becomes a form of confidence, a quiet assurance that doesn't need validation. People who are deeply secure in themselves do not argue for acceptance. They let time, truth, and their actions reveal everything. Because truth doesn't rush, it doesn't beg to be believed. Every time you allow someone or something to hijack your attention, you lose a little of yourself. Every time you pull your energy back and center it within, you grow stronger. Your thoughts become cleaner, your path clearer, your vision sharper. Your reality begins to mirror the calm and purpose within you. Your energy goes where your attention flows. And once you understand that truth, not just in thought but in action, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You become the architect of your own peace, the author of your own transformation. The moment you decide where your attention belongs, you decide what kind of life you will live. The noise of the world is designed to distract you. It pulls your attention away from your inner truth and scatters your peace across 1,000 meaningless things. Every sound, every headline, every demand for your attention is crafted to keep you chasing something outside yourself. Success, approval, recognition, belonging. And before you realize it, you are no longer living consciously. You're reacting, scrolling, comparing, running. The world's noise doesn't always come as chaos. Sometimes it comes disguised as opportunity. It makes you believe that constant movement equals progress, that being busy means being important, that louder voices must know more. But all of this noise has one purpose: to keep you from hearing the still, quiet voice within you that already knows who you are and what you're meant to do. When you live surrounded by noise, your mind begins to lose its natural rhythm. You wake up already anxious, already scrolling through distractions before your soul even greets the morning. You begin to measure your worth through other people's lives, comparing your journey to their highlight reel. The world teaches you that silence is unproductive, that slowing down means you're falling behind. But what if stillness is not weakness? What if silence is where clarity begins? The truth is, the noise outside will never end. It's your responsibility to end its control over you. The more attention you give to external noise, the less you hear your inner wisdom. You start to forget your own voice. You become shaped by the world's opinions instead of your soul's direction. Every advertisement tells you who to be. Every influencer shows you what to want. Every opinion tries to define what's right for you. And somewhere between all that noise, you lose the simple joy of just being. You forget that you don't need to become anything to be enough. You already are. But to remember that truth, you must step away from the noise. You must return to silence, not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that feels alive. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. When you quiet the outer world, you start hearing the inner one. You start noticing how your mind moves, how your emotions flow, how your energy responds. You begin to see what truly matters and what was just distraction dressed as importance. The moment you withdraw from the noise, life begins to speak to you in new ways. The sound of your own breathing, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the whisper of intuition that was always there but never heard. The world will always tempt you to chase louder things. It will tell you that the next goal, the next relationship, the next possession will finally bring you peace. But every time you reach one, another appears. It's a cycle designed to keep you restless. Real peace doesn't live in the external, it lives in the internal. You can stand in a crowded city and still feel stillness if your inner world is quiet. You can live surrounded by silence and still feel chaos if your mind is loud. The true battle is not with the noise outside, it's with the noise inside your own mind. You must learn to protect your attention as you would your most precious treasure, because that's what it is. Every unnecessary argument, every toxic conversation, every moment wasted in comparison steals your inner calm. You don't owe the world your reaction. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You owe yourself peace. And that means learning to step back, to walk away from noise, from gossip, from conflict that doesn't align with your growth. When you do, people may call you distant or detached, but in reality, you're just learning to listen to something deeper. There's a power that rises when you detach from the noise. You begin to move differently. You start doing things not for attention, but for alignment. It simply stands, unwavering, waiting for those ready to see it. The beauty of silence is that it gives you control over your energy. Words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They can wound, they can be twisted, they can trap you in unnecessary conflict. But silence holds power because it keeps you in command. It allows you to observe before reacting, to think before responding, to decide from clarity instead of emotion. When you are silent, you are not passive, you are powerful in your restraint. You become an observer of the game rather than a pawn in it. Silence also deepens your connection with the world around you. In stillness, you start noticing how life speaks in ways beyond language. The way the wind moves through the trees, the rhythm of your breath, the quiet pulse of existence that never stops. When you're truly silent, you become aware that truth isn't something to be spoken, it's something to be felt. Every sound, every pause, every breath becomes a message. You begin to see how everything is communicating, but only those who are still can hear it. There is also a deep peace that comes from letting silence speak in your relationships. You stop chasing closure. You stop trying to convince others of your value. You stop forcing conversations that were never meant to happen. Silence becomes your boundary and your declaration of self-worth. When someone doesn't appreciate your energy, you simply withdraw it. You don't argue, you don't explain, you let your absence speak. That absence carries more truth than any words could, because those who truly care will feel it, and those who never did will reveal it. Silence reveals character. Watch how people react when you no longer respond the way they expect. Some will respect your peace, others will resent it. But either way, you'll see their truth. When you stop feeding chaos with your reaction, it starves. When you stop matching someone's energy, you expose theirs. Silence doesn't fight battles, it ends them. It doesn't demand understanding, it earns it. It doesn't beg for attention, it commands it. Truth is not loud, it's steady. It doesn't argue, it simply is. And silence is its greatest ally. In the stillness, you begin to see the patterns that words conceal. You recognize manipulation dressed as kindness, fear disguised as love, ego hidden behind confidence. You begin to see through everything and everyone, not with judgment, but with awareness. That awareness frees you. It allows you to stop reacting and start choosing. You no longer waste energy fighting illusions. You stand in truth, grounded, calm, and untouchable. Learn to trust silence. Let it guide you. Let it show you what words can't. The truth doesn't always arrive in explanations or apologies. It arrives in energy, in patterns, in stillness. The people who are meant for you will understand your silence. They won't need words to feel your presence. And those who can't handle your silence were never aligned with your peace to begin with. Silence reveals everything, the truth of others, the truth of situations, and most importantly, the truth of yourself. It teaches you that you don't need to fight for clarity. You only need to stop speaking long enough to see it, because when words fade and the noise settles, what remains is truth, and truth spoken or not, always finds its way to the surface. Silence is the highest form of communication. It doesn't need validation, it doesn't seek attention, and it doesn't demand approval. When you've mastered the art of silence, you've mastered the art of control. Control over your reactions, your emotions, and your energy. Silence isn't weakness. It's strength restrained. It's the kind of power that doesn't scream to be seen. It simply is. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, the one who stays silent radiates a mystery that cannot be ignored. Silence is not emptiness. It's awareness in its purest form. When you choose silence, you stop reacting to every noise around you. You no longer feel the urge to prove yourself, explain yourself, or defend your peace. You stop wasting energy on battles that don't build you. Instead, you begin to conserve your energy, allowing your silence to speak where words would have been wasted. Because the truth is, silence always reveals more than noise ever could. The way you respond to things not worthy of your energy becomes your greatest expression of self-respect. Silence is misunderstood by many because it's often mistaken for indifference. But silence isn't about disengagement. It's about mastery. It's choosing to understand without interrupting, to observe without reacting, and to know without needing to show. You realize that the louder someone speaks, the more they often reveal their insecurity. True strength doesn't perform, it contains. It's the ability to stay still in the storm and not lose yourself in the chaos. When you begin to focus on yourself, silence becomes your natural state. Because you no longer crave noise, you crave clarity. The more you focus inward, the less you find the need to explain your life to others. You start to value peace over attention, growth over validation, and understanding over arguments. Silence becomes your filter. You start to hear only what matters, to engage only when it's purposeful, and to move only when it's meaningful. There's a power in letting silence answer questions that words cannot. Sometimes the best response to doubt is progress. The best reply to disrespect is distance. The best revenge is transformation. And none of these require sound. When you stay silent and keep moving, the world has no choice but to watch your growth. People who once underestimated you begin to question their judgment, not because you argued, but because you evolved. Silence, in its quiet way, exposes truth. It reveals who's genuine, who's patient, who's jealous, and who's unbothered. To let silence speak means you trust time to reveal what noise tries to hide. You understand that every truth surfaces eventually, every lie fades, and every intention exposes itself. So instead of reacting emotionally to every situation, you let your silence become a mirror. When others project negativity, your stillness reflects it back to them. When they try to provoke you, your composure unsettles them. You realize that silence is not submission. It's awareness elevated to wisdom. Think about it. When someone insults you and you respond with silence, what happens? They lose their control. Your lack of reaction disarms them. You take away their power by refusing to engage. Because silence creates space, and in that space, truth begins to echo. It's not your responsibility to convince anyone of your worth. Your energy speaks through your actions, your consistency, and your calmness. The more you master silence, the more you master your life. This doesn't mean you become cold or detached. It means you become selective. You no longer give everyone access to your thoughts or emotions. You learn that not everything requires a response. Sometimes silence is your boundary, a clear statement that says, I choose peace over participation. You begin to understand that your peace is your greatest form of wealth, and silence is the lock that protects it. When you're silent, you can hear your intuition clearly. You begin to listen to the subtle messages life gives you, the small nudges, the quiet lessons, the hidden opportunities. Noise blocks wisdom, but silence reveals it. In silence, you meet your true self, raw, real, unfiltered. You see your patterns, your fears, your strengths, and your desires without distortion. Silence allows you to recalibrate your soul, to rebuild your mindset, and to reconnect with your purpose. The one who learns to let silence speak becomes untouchable. Because no matter what life throws at you, chaos, misunderstanding, betrayal, you don't react, you respond. And often, the most powerful response is none at all. You simply continue to build, evolve, and ascend in silence. Then one day, your silence roars through your success, your peace, and your presence. Silence isn't the absence of words, it's the presence of awareness. It's knowing that you don't need to prove what is already evident. The calmest minds build the loudest legacies. So focus on yourself, guard your peace, and let silence do the talking. Because when your silence speaks, the world listens, even if it doesn't understand. Silence is not just an act of withholding words. It is a declaration of power. It is the understanding that you don't need to respond to be understood, nor shout to be heard. Silence is your proof that you have mastered yourself, your impulses, your ego, your emotions. It is a quiet revolution inside the soul that whispers, I no longer need the world to validate me. When you let silence speak, you operate from a higher consciousness. You realize that every reaction costs energy, and not every situation deserves your energy. You begin to recognize that stillness is not a pause in life, it's a strategy. People often mistake silence for weakness because they have never experienced the strength it takes to stay composed in moments of chaos. Anyone can argue, anyone can defend, but it takes a rare kind of inner power to remain still when provoked. Silence requires control, not of others, but of yourself. When you choose silence over reaction, you declare mastery over your inner world. You tell life, I choose peace over drama. I choose growth over chaos. I choose to rise rather than argue. Silence speaks louder than any defense could ever do. When you walk away from conflict, when you stop explaining your intentions, when you stop proving your worth, people begin to feel the weight of your absence. They hear the echo of your silence in ways words could never express. It unsettles them because silence is unarguable. It cannot be debated, twisted, or misunderstood. It simply is. And in that stillness, people are forced to confront their own noise. True silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness. It is when your mind is calm enough to hear the truth beneath the chaos. You start to see through people's words, through situations, through illusions. You understand that noise is often just fear trying to mask itself as certainty. The louder someone is, the more they reveal their lack of peace. And so, your silence becomes a mirror. It reflects who they are without you having to say a thing. When you focus on yourself, silence becomes a natural consequence. Because the more you grow, the less you need to explain. You realize that words can't describe evolution. Transformation doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself in time. Your silence becomes the space where you build, heal, and rise. While others are busy proving themselves to the world, you are sculpting yourself in quiet dedication. Your silence becomes the soil in which your future blossoms. And then comes the most beautiful moment, when your silence turns into results. The same people who doubted you, who tried to provoke you, who demanded explanations, they begin to see. They realize your silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. Every moment you didn't react was a moment you redirected energy into your growth. Every time you walked away, you walked toward a better version of yourself. Your silence begins to speak through your actions, your progress, your peace. And when that happens, there is nothing left to prove. Silence also protects what words might destroy. Not every plan needs to be spoken. Not every goal needs to be shared. When you remain silent, you move in purity, untouched by opinions, unaffected by judgment. Noise invites interference, but silence breeds alignment. You start to understand that life reveals its greatest blessings to those who can keep their mouths shut and their spirits open. You move quietly, and yet everything around you starts to shift, because silence carries intention, and intention carries power. In relationships, silence teaches discernment. You stop chasing those who do not value you. You learn that silence after betrayal is the most powerful closure. You don't have to explain your boundaries to those who already crossed them. You don't have to clarify your worth to those who fail to see it. You simply remove your presence and let silence be your message. It's the kind of message that lingers, because people forget words, but they never forget how your silence made them feel. Silence isn't avoidance. It's awareness. It's knowing when your words will fall on deaf ears, when your energy will be wasted, and when your peace is more valuable than being right. It's the art of understanding that not everything needs your reaction, not everyone deserves your time, and not every battle is yours to fight. Silence gives you freedom. The freedom to focus on what truly matters. It's not passive, it's intentional. When you learn to let silence speak, you become untouchable. People can misjudge you, misunderstand you, even mock your quietness, but they can't affect you, because silence creates an invisible shield around your energy. It keeps your spirit clean from the world's noise. You move differently. You think deeply. You act purposefully. And while others are entangled in the noise of ego and distraction, you stand still in awareness. Silence becomes your identity, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have nothing to prove. You let your life, your peace, and your presence do the speaking. Your silence becomes your language, your calm becomes your signature, and your focus becomes your power. So let silence speak for you. Let your calm unsettle those who thrive on chaos. Let your absence speak louder than your arguments. Because silence, when mastered, is the loudest voice in the room. It tells the world that you are in control, that you are focused, and that you are unbothered. It is the sound of inner peace, and nothing is more powerful than that. When you focus on yourself and let silence speak, something profound begins to happen. The noise of the world starts to fade, and you begin to hear your true voice. This is the moment when you no longer seek validation from others, because you have found validation within yourself. The chaos that once demanded your attention no longer has power over you. The opinions, judgments, and expectations of others lose their grip, And for the first time, you experience what true freedom feels like, the freedom to simply be. Silence becomes your sanctuary, your compass, and your strength. In a world obsessed with talking, posting, and proving, silence becomes your rebellion. It's how you separate yourself from the masses who are constantly seeking to be seen. You no longer feel the need to announce every move or justify every decision. You understand that the loudest journeys are often the most directionless, while the quiet ones transform lives in ways unseen. Focusing on yourself means redirecting all that scattered energy, the energy wasted on explaining, comparing, or competing, and channeling it inward. It's turning your attention to the one place that truly matters, within. When you let silence guide you, you begin to see how much noise you once allowed into your life. You recognize the times you over-explained to people who never cared to understand, defended yourself to those who had already made up their minds, and chased conversations that led nowhere. Now you withdraw from that cycle. You learn that your growth doesn't need to be witnessed, your healing doesn't need an audience, and your evolution doesn't require applause. It only requires consistency, patience, and faith in silence. There is a quiet strength in knowing you don't have to respond to everything. You realize that silence has its own language, one that communicates maturity, awareness, and control. The more you focus on yourself, the more you learn to use silence strategically. You let it filter out what doesn't serve you. You allow it to test relationships, because silence exposes truth faster than words ever could. Those who truly value you, you will understand your quiet. Those who don't will disappear into their own noise. And that is the beauty of it. Silence removes what is false without confrontation. The more you embrace silence, the more you start to hear life's subtle messages. You begin to see how everything connects, your past struggles, your moments of isolation, your quiet victories. You realize that silence is not empty. It's full of answers. It reveals the wisdom that noise hides. It allows clarity to rise above confusion. And as you focus inward, your intuition grows sharper. You stop overthinking and start knowing. You start to trust the energy you feel, the instincts that whisper, and the peace that tells you when to walk away. Focusing on yourself and letting silence speak doesn't mean you cut yourself off from the world. It means you engage with it differently. You stop reacting impulsively. You become more deliberate with your actions, your words, and your energy. You understand that what you build in silence will one day speak volumes. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to prove anything. Your presence alone says everything. People start to feel the depth of your calm, the weight of your composure, the power of your restraint. You carry an energy that cannot be faked. The energy of someone who has faced chaos and chosen peace anyway. Silence also teaches you detachment, not from care, but from control. You stop trying to fix everything and everyone. You stop explaining your worth, your decisions, and your dreams. You learn that people will interpret you through their own limitations, and that's not your responsibility to correct. You stop chasing closure because silence is closure. It's the door that closes without noise, the ending that needs no explanation. It's you saying, I release this, without uttering a single word. Over time, silence transforms you. It shapes your perspective, your energy, your entire way of being. You begin to walk differently. Slower, more deliberate, more grounded. You speak less, but when you do, your words carry weight. You move quietly, but your actions create waves. You no longer feel the urge to prove your value because your peace is proof enough. You stop living for reaction and start living for alignment. That is the ultimate transformation, from being driven by noise to being guided by silence. And as you continue this path, you will notice something remarkable. The world begins to respond differently to you. The same people who once overlooked you now sense your strength. The same situations that used to drain you no longer affect you. You don't need to chase respect anymore. Your silence commands it. You don't need to argue for attention. Your presence earns it. Because silence is magnetic, it draws the right energy while repelling the wrong one. Focus on yourself and let silence do what noise never could. Let it heal you, strengthen you, and refine you. Let it teach you that not every truth needs to be spoken, not every emotion needs to be shared, and not every battle deserves your energy. The loudest victories happen in silence, in the unseen hours of discipline, the quiet moments of self-reflection, and the private decisions that change your life. Your silence becomes your story. It's the proof that you chose growth over drama, clarity over confusion, and inner peace over external validation. When you let silence speak, you no longer have to. Your energy becomes your message. Your focus becomes your power. And your calm becomes your greatest achievement. Because in a world addicted to noise, the one who masters silence becomes unstoppable, unshakable, untouchable, and truly free. When you focus on yourself and let silence speak, you step into a level of peace and power that the world cannot touch. You stop living to be understood and start living to understand yourself. You realize that real strength isn't about how loudly you can respond, but how calmly you can rise above. Silence becomes your weapon, not to harm, but to protect your energy, your purpose, and your evolution. You no longer chase validation, attention, or explanation. You simply be. And in that stillness you grow, you heal, and you transform. The noise of the world loses its hold on you because you found something louder, your inner peace. You stop reacting to the small things that once disturbed your mind, and you begin to see life from a higher place of awareness. You no longer need to shout to be heard, because your silence carries a presence words can never express. The power you once sought in others is discovered within yourself. Let this truth guide you. Focus on your path, your growth, and your peace. Speak less, observe more, and let your silence reveal your transformation. Because when you stop explaining and start evolving, the world eventually listens, not to your words, but to your energy. And in that moment, your silence becomes the loudest statement of all, that you have mastered yourself, and nothing outside you can disturb what lives within.